Well, welcome everybody to the Nevada Theater and this very special evening, this very special forum on fire, particularly fire concerns in the South Yuba River Canyon. I'm Paul Emery I'm News Director at KVMR Radio, and I'd like to thank the Nevada Theater for just making this venue available at such a short notice. This whole idea, let's hear it for the theater. The whole idea of this came about after I was doing a interview with Pascal from Yubanet last week about the fire at Edwards Crossing. And after we did the interview, we sat and talked for a little bit, and we both agreed this was a really crucial issue, that we needed to pull the whole community together and pull all the different people from the various agencies and all of the residents and neighbors, get us all in the same room at the same time, ask questions, and we can go forward from there with a good, clear understanding of what we're dealing with here. Very, very much like to thank Yuba Docs for helping to underwriting this event and coming up with some contributions that really help cover the expenses of this. So we're broadcasting this live. We will put this up as a podcast probably tomorrow sometime, and then you'll be able to click on it and listen to it or tell other people about it. So I'm going to turn it over to Pascal from Yubanet, who really was the person that organized the whole thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, and welcome everybody. For those here in the audience, I'm going to ask you to turn your cell phones off or put them on vibrate, please. That would be really helpful. And I would like to thank our 11 panelists here who on very short notice came and agreed to participate in this conversation, this community conversation about the state of emergency in the Yuba Canyon. We all know that fires happen often, and they happen more and more often. Now we're in year 5 of a drought, and we have significant tree mortality. We have bark beetles, and what's happening is that any fire has enormous potential in the Yuba Canyon. So normally they say the first step is to acknowledge that you have a problem. So I think we can all acknowledge that we have a problem, we have a fire problem. And now I'd like you to meet our panelists, and we're going to start with Captain Jeff Pettitt from Nevada County Sheriff's Office.
All right, let's see if I can get this to work. Can everybody hear me? Okay, so good evening. Pascal, thank you for inviting us and setting this up for everybody today. It is an important topic that we all have a vested interest in, especially this time of year and going on in the year with as dry as it's been over the last few years. Again, as Pascal said, I am Jeff Pettitt. I am a captain with Nevada County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office, our primary role in the Yuba Canyon is going to be that of general law enforcement. However, in this area here, our main concern has been the parking. Being able to get the fire apparatuses down to some of the crossings, Purdon Crossing and Edwards Crossing, has been a problem just because of the amount of people that are going down to these areas. They park in the road, they end up blocking the road, and that's one of the main focuses for the Sheriff's Office going forward, and like I said, as well as the general law enforcement, and advising people when they get down there that these are the areas of concern and why they may have received a parking citation.
Hello, good evening to everybody. My name is Matthew Green. I'm the Chief Ranger for the Sierra District. My area of responsibility is from Plumas County to Mono County in the Western Sierras, and the South Yuba River is one of my park units. I live on this side of the Sierra, so I have obviously a vested interest. State Parks manages the state park. Our staff, our peace officer staff, do work in and out of park lines, or state peace officers. So area responsibility is basically about 4,000 acres, about 28 miles of river. And we have probably 3 to 4 staff at any one time out there with that responsibility. So you can see we have a large area, try to do the best we can, try to preserve and protect safety, public safety, and protect our resources along the state park. And in between there, we have some contiguous properties that we try to help out also. We work in partnership with the Sheriff's Department, fire, and everybody else. It's really, as everybody knows, a real physical environment. It's tough to get in between the different crossings, but we try to do our best with the property issues and parking issues that exist at Purdon, all the way to some of our capacity issues that we have over at Bridgeport and 49 Crossing. We get between anywhere from 10 years ago, about 490,000 people a year, and estimates now close to 700,000. Large city, and you know, it's definitely a capacity issue. We do our best, but that's what basically what State Parks' responsibility is in South Yuba.
Boyd?
Good evening. My name is Boyd Johnson, and I'm one of 2 battalion chiefs with the North San Juan Fire Protection District. We're a small, mainly volunteer fire department that protects about 70 square miles between the South Yuba and the middle Yuba. And 70 square miles is about 3 times the size of the island of Manhattan, if you've ever been there. So it's a pretty large area. In terms of the South Yuba Canyon, our district extends from Point Defiance, where the South Yuba ends, up the north side of the river to just above Edwards Crossing. And our role would be to help chase down smokes that might be sighted in the river, and to respond to fires that we can get at on our side of the river. And I wanted to say now, because I don't know if I'll have another chance, something about how difficult it is to find fires. I know there's an interest tonight in campfires that occur in the River Canyon. And historically, those have been noticed by neighbors who've either seen the smoke or the flame, typically in the middle of the night. And so one of the things about locating them is that it's dark, and that can be a problem. In addition, because it's night, the tools that make it much easier to find fires in the day, such as the lookouts and the aircraft, may be unable to fly, and so we have to drive around or walk into the canyon or up the canyon in order to find those fires. And that hike can be quite lengthy, can be a mile or more. And if you remember a few years ago, the exchange of gunfire and injury that occurred just above Edwards Crossing, it's a little bit intimidating to wander into the canyon at night, and there are people on this panel that are better equipped to handle that kind of endeavor than our fire department is. In addition, if the fires have a chance to burn and there's no wind, the canyon can fill up with smoke. And so you can be standing on one side of the river and not be able to see the fire on the other side of the river, or hear it because of the running water. So that can be a problem, and has been in the past. And if fire crew, having gone upstream, has located the fire, their engine is back at the intersection of Purdon and the bridge, or North Bloomfield and the bridge. And so they have very limited resources to use in order to actually extinguish the fire until daylight appears. And then a last fact that I think that you should be aware of if you're not, is that there's a load limit on the Purdon and Edwards Crossing bridges of 4 tons. And what that means is that no fire truck is going to cross them. And so we're limited initially to the fire engines that we have on our side, and we operate with the help of the Columbia Hill CAL FIRE engines. And we have to wait until engines from town come the long way, basically Highway 49 across the bridge there, before we can benefit from their assistance. And I also, so just one last thing about the geography. The local agencies that protect the river on the other side, there's Consolidated from approximately Jones Bar, I'm not sure where exactly the border is, upstream. And then we interact with the Penn Valley Fire Protection District from Jones Bar down to Bridgeport. And there's been some fire activity down there, although the campfire issue, I think, is more up in the Purdon-Edwards area. Thanks.
Speaking of CAL FIRE,
Speaking of CAL FIRE, which one do I take? Goodness. Matt Wallen is my name. I am your local area battalion chief for the areas of North San Juan all the way down to Higgins, east down to Penn Valley, west to Penn Valley and east over to the Bear River, Peardale, Chicago Park area. And this would include the SRA, the state responsibility areas within the fire protection. You have about 10 different fire agencies in Nevada County that we cooperate all to get these fires out. And so I'm kind of the reaction when you guys get a fire in the canyon and it gets reported. I have the ability to order thousands, if not millions of dollars of resources to show up within an hour or two to mitigate that threat. So early detection is key, as was proven in the Yuba fire. Thankfully, we had a resident that woke up that morning and over a cup of coffee saw a large column starting to build and gave pretty good direction on how to get to it, or at least where they were. How to get to it was another issue, but they could see it, and once we could see where they could see, we could address it appropriately. But no joke about it, this canyon is a tremendous risk for the community, even all the way here to Nevada City. Once a fire gets going under the right conditions, or the wrong conditions, depending on how you look at it, it will change. It has the potential to change everybody's lives here dramatically, and for a very long time. And so my job is to keep them small. We want to get everything under 10 acres or less in the first initial response. And this fire the other day we held it at 2, but we were lucky, very lucky. Well, I appreciate the encouragement, but we're getting tired. These seasons that we've been having, to be honest, they're wearing people down to the nub. I have people, and this season really hasn't been that bad here locally. We've had with large-scale fires, but I can tell you we have been busier. I've been in this area 4 years now as the chief here, and we have been busier this year than any year that I've been here, and those that have been here longer than myself can recollect for those initial attack incipient fires where we pick them up in anywhere from a 10 by 10 spot to up to an acre. We have been getting them daily, and that is, to me, unheard of. Most of them have all been human caused, of course, and a various multitude of reasons. Some set intentionally, some by deranged individuals perhaps. Some we don't know how they started, but we're kind of leaning more back toward the deranged individuals. And it's frustrating because we're getting, not only we're cracking all day long trying to suppress these fires, but we get up in the middle of the night to go and address them, and people are getting tired. And hopefully everybody stays safe and due to the fatigue doesn't make a bad decision and get somebody hurt. But that's the honesty of it. And I apologize, I didn't mean to be rude. If you saw me on my phone, I may have to leave because I'm getting summoned to go down to San Bernardino for the fire, take a strike team down there. So I may have to leave before this meeting is over. But I will let you know, and they know I'm in this meeting, and I have a counterpart that can step in my place if I have to leave. One of our captains, John Hotchkiss, is very well versed, and he is also one of your local law enforcement, so he knows the area better than I even, and all of the parts of the equation that come into play. But we were lucky, folks, with this fire. The conditions, it came up real early in the morning. One of the saving graces of the canyon, and I don't get on my soapbox too much here, is that we had high humidities and usually do with the down canyon drift and the river itself. We had higher humidities, it was shaded, but had we not got early up aircraft, which is very uncommon, very, very uncommon. I pulled a few rabbits out of the hat. We got a law enforcement helicopter to help us come and find it because the fire agency helicopters were not available until later in the morning. They helped us identify it right away, gave us a size up on what we had, and then I had 2 fixed wing on it by 9 a.m., which is very unheard of, but everybody, one of the pilots particularly that flies one of those aircraft lives on the canyon, and he's like, I'm not messing around, we're going now. And had we been 10 to 15 minutes later without retardant, we would probably still be dealing with that fire right now. Wow. So we were fortunate. Everybody worked really, really hard. There was no messing around, and the firefighting ninjas and all of us, whether it's CAL FIRE or our cooperators, everybody brought it together, and we made it work. I just hope that we can continue to do that. And my biggest concern, and I'll leave you with this, is just access, access, access. That is our problem, getting in there, is the access is so restrictive and limited that it makes it scary for me to even want to commit my resources in to even fight the fire, because I don't want to get one of my people hurt or killed trying to do it, and that's because of lack of access. So anyway, hopefully I'll be able to stay to the end and answer questions. I'm not sure the Q&A period, but I'd love to be able to chat with you. So again, Matt Wallen, CAL FIRE, Nevada City. Thank you.
And speaking of access, access meaning roads, and roads are part of the county system. And we have Sean Powers here.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a tough act to follow, but my name's Sean Powers. I'm actually the Community Development Director in Nevada County. Public Works is one of the functions of community development. Community development really is your local land use control agency for telling folks what can and go on with property, but Public Works is a component of that. Definitely the parking and access down at Edwards Crossing is definitely concerning to us. We work closely with the Sheriff's Department to support that, and I'm just here to get a lot of information like you folks and see what the county can do to assist. Obviously, fire is a major concern for our board. Just talking for that today, a couple of our supervisors wanted to be here tonight, but with the short notice, they're going to have me available here to report back to them. So once again, Sean Powers, Community Development, Nevada County.
Well, and then now off to the other side, all these people with the shiny uniforms and the lots of stuff, bugles and such. Shelly?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Shelly Allen, and I work for the Tahoe National Forest. I'm the fire chief for the Tahoe. So as Chief Wallen mentioned, one of the things that is fairly unique to the state of California is that we have cooperative agreements with all of our partners. It helps us in terms of just responding quickly, and really no matter who's got direct protection of a certain area, particularly in the canyon that we're talking about, we're all going to show up, and we're all going to do what we can to protect the resources that are in the canyon and then protect that fire from coming up out of the canyon. I think one of the things that was mentioned, access and safety, is going to be one of the biggest things that we're concerned about, particularly when those fires happen deep down in the canyon. For this particular fire that happened, the minute I hear the location and that we're talking down in, Edwards or down into Purdon, some of those areas, you've all been there and you all understand that the steepness in those drainages and just the access and how we can manage to keep people in there safely. And so we really want to protect our firefighters. And so for me, public education and just making sure that people have an awareness of how important it is to make sure their campfires are out if they are having campfires deep down in there, so that we're not concerned about something getting away and having to send our forces into that area, because it is really steep and rocky and access is very limited. So a lot of that we're going to bring in our aviation assets, which we did on this fire. We brought in our helicopter to help out. But I think one of the important things to remember is that we, as all of the fire resources within this county, are going to work together to get these fires out as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. So again, it's Shelly Allen, Forest Service, Tahoe National Forest.
And then there's people that set fires for a living. That might be a little simplistic, but Jennifer, what do you do for a living?
Thanks, Pascal. My name's Jennifer Hinckley. I am the prescribed fire specialist for the Tahoe National Forest. I oversee all of the prescribed fire and all the fuels management that happens on the forest. So they brought me here because that's my specialty. It's what I've done my entire career. I was moved here from Florida to help y'all, and so you know, when you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
And of course, the South Yuba is a state wild and scenic river, and that's thanks in large part to one organization, the South Yuba River Citizens League, and Caleb is here to represent SYRCL.
Thank you, Pascal, and thank you everybody for coming out. My name is Caleb Dardick. I'm the Executive Director of SYRCL, the South Yuba River Citizens League. And let's just have another round of applause for the brave men and women who put out that fire so quickly. We're so lucky that we got out of this the way we did and have a chance to come together in this room and on the airwaves and to organize as a community and make very clear what we want and to get the resources to support these efforts. And for those of you not familiar with SYRCL, many of you are members. We've been around for 33 years. We have 3,500 members, over 1,000 3,500 dues-paying members, over 1,000 volunteers, and really committed to protecting the Yuba on both the short term and the long term. And I have to say, doing community meetings, meeting with our members for the last couple years, it's now 5 years for me here, the number one concern every summer has to do with fire. Everyone is understandably concerned, and the ever-increasing number of visitors to the South Yuba River State Park. And I think when Matt Green tells you that the numbers went from 490,000 to 700,000 a year, think of how many cars that is. Think of the impact on parking, traffic, human waste, risk of fire. And so we have a lot to talk about tonight. There's a lot that we can do, but we're an advocacy organization, and we really look to you to be part of that voice for the Yuba and to be able to provide the political muscle, the community muscle, to give the support and resources that state parks, BLM, and the firefighting agencies, all 10 of them in the National Forest, and everybody else, back them up. We need to come together as a community because we're here because this is such a beautiful place. The river is what unites us. Let's not be negligent and assume that we can continue to bear this ever-increasing demand without giving back the resources and support that are so necessary. And I look forward to this panel going on and sharing some of the things that SYRCL is working on and that we would like your help in fighting for in the years ahead or even weeks ahead.
Speaking of fighting, here's another guy who just came back from the Soberanes fire down in Big Sur, right, Josh?
Yep. My name's Josh Sunde. I'm a battalion chief with the Nevada County Consolidated Fire District. We cover 7 stations, Nevada County, unincorporated, Grass Valley, Nevada City. I'm responsible for 21 firefighters a day I'm in charge of. Also, we cover 150 square miles approximately and almost 50,000 residents. Our primary responsibility in the South Yuba Canyon is initial attack for all fires, whatever they may be, medical aids, rescue, technical rescue, and any other reason that may be called swiftwater rescue. We are consistently in the South Yuba Canyon throughout the summers. Our main access points would be the 49 overcrossing, the Perding crossing, and the Edwards crossing. We also provide mutual aid up to the town of Washington and up to Emerald Pools. You know, I got to emulate what Matt says. Is the access issues is what really scares me in the South Yuba, is being able to get to those fires, finding the point where we can see what we have and how do we get there to stop it as fast as we can. And because if we don't stop them quick, they have time to build, and that's what really scares me. Again, I look forward to the Q&A at this. I am on duty also, and my phone's ringing consistently, so I don't mean to be rude when I interrupt. I do have Deputy Fire Marshal McMahon that would step into my place if need be, if I wind up getting a call, but I am on duty today. Again, I'm Battalion Chief Josh Sunde in the Nevada County Consolidated Fire District.
And then we get to one of the big landowners.
Hi, my name is Jeff Horn. I'm the lead recreation planner for Mother Lode Field Office, and our office manages land in 13 counties actually, up and down the Mother Lode, and Nevada County obviously is one of them. The South Yuba we manage from basically Purdon Crossing up to the Forest Service boundary, including the campground that's off of North Bloomfield Road and the trail that goes up and down the South Yuba River. So, Jeff Horn, recreation guy. We do a fair amount of work in our campground. As everybody has noticed, the amount of use is pretty much skyrocketed. I would say in the last 2 years, I haven't seen anything like it. It is, doubled and tripled. And we just recently renovated our campground, and it was closed for quite a long time, up until the 4th of July. And as soon as it opened, it was just packed every weekend. So that's it. Look forward to the questions.
So again, thanks everybody for being here. My name's Pascal from Ubanet. I will be your moderator tonight. So we will go to the Q&A portion of the evening. So there's 2 microphones, stage left, stage right. If you have a question, please come up. What we try to do, the one question before we start, questions from the public and from online. If you want, you can email us questions, or you can go on Ubanet and you can ask a question there. What I would like to say is, right now, there are no fires allowed in the canyon. And I would like confirmation from all these agencies here. There are no fires allowed in the canyon. If you are on private property, and there are a few private properties in the Yuba Canyon, if you camp there and you don't have written permission from the property owner to have a campfire, you're an arsonist. And if you have permission and the fire gets away from you, you and the homeowner are liable for the suppression cost. And I can tell you, I publish fire news every day. The one thing I never publish is the cost, because I think that actually people want to know, where is the fire, where is it going, and what's it doing. They don't necessarily want to know how much does it cost. But I can tell you that fires, they add up very fast. Very quickly, the bill runs very high. So it would be nice if we all could have a management plan, that all these agencies could work together, and we would get the benefit. We would get fuels production, we would get better, maybe better access, or we would have at least a little bit of safety. Because you've all been down to the Yuba, and you know that if a fire starts and you are half a mile or a mile away from any of the crossings, by the time you get to your car, if you get in time to your car, you probably still are going to burn up, because people park willy-nilly anywhere. You won't get out. So that is something, that is, as a community, that is our responsibility, to actually respect some really basic rules. The no parking signs, they're there for a reason. And I would love to see like a flotilla of tow trucks, actually. I would love for a flotilla of tow trucks, and I mean, at 1 o'clock, when everybody is parked and everybody's having a grand old time, and you're parking other people in, or you just reduce the lane to 1 lane, your car should be towed. I'm sorry. You know, in 2004, these agencies, they did a really great thing. They came up with something that is called the South Yuba River Comprehensive Management Plan. It's all 95 pages of it. There were over a year and a half of very long, very detailed public meetings. This plan was done because when the Yuba became wild and scenic, the agencies did what they normally do for a federal wild and scenic river. And they went and they did this management plan. Now, if the Yuba was a federal wild and scenic river, there might even be money to implement this plan, but there is a plan. So now, ask your questions, and then let's find a way to get these guys the funding that they need to implement this thing, so that we can all be safe and secure and enjoy the river for a long time. First question.
Hi, my name is Robin, and I work with SYRCL on the weekends with the River Ambassador program. And I don't have a question, but I do have a couple of suggestions.
Could
I
you
hope you
could
don't
you
mind.
please speak into the microphone?
Oh, okay. Is that better?
That's much better.
Okay, I'm Robin, and I work with SYRCL. And literally, I've spoken to thousands of people this summer, and the use is enormously up. People come from the Bay Area, from Sacramento, from other countries. The Yuba River's been written up in all these national magazines, and it's just incredible how far people will travel. But I read a little excerpt that said something about inconsiderate people, and I would just like to point out that 99.9% of people are good, and they really love the river, and they want to take care of it. But what people don't know, they can't do. So years ago, I camped at Edwards. It wasn't a drought, but we had a fire. And for me, that's pretty amazing because I've always been really conscientious, and it just didn't occur to me because we were surrounded by rocks. So I have a suggestion, which is, I know there are a lot of people in this community who volunteer picking up trash along the river. I've met hundreds of them. If we were to put signs, the state park signs, forgive me, people ignore those because they've just seen them too much, and some of them are unreasonable, like don't smoke anywhere, don't drink anywhere. People aren't going to listen to that. But if we put signs, if we just made paper signs and tacked them up on trees all along Edwards, from Edwards to Purdon, and said no fires, fire danger high. Also, if we had volunteers come out in vests and talk to people late in the afternoon about the high fire danger, I believe that we could really prevent a lot of fires. I think we already really have this summer by talking to people. But people are coming from all over, so they're not all educated. I'm sorry, I'll end this, but the other thing is we need a national public service campaign about how to take care of our rivers and the country. And fire prevention could be a part of that.
Thank you.
Public service.
Thank
campaign.
you. Al, not too close to the microphone, Al. I know your voice.
Al Wolf, you know, when I was in the Far East during the Vietnam War, I spent a lot of time in the Japanese mountains and also in Taiwan and the Philippines, and their scenic spots. Their areas are all controlled. You have to take a bus to get in there. And you know, particularly the national forest that surrounds Mount Fuji, Harkoni it's called, is only available by bus or rail in there, period. And my suggestion is control access. You've got almost 50 million people in the state. You're going to have more. In a prime recreation area, you want to save it. You better restrict access and also strengthen your bridges. Particularly in Japan, I saw some very strong bridges. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question here online that says, please encourage the U.S. Forest Service to shut down campfires in their campgrounds. Shelly, Jennifer?
Yeah, so we, obviously we do go into fire restrictions, and I think the majority of folks are aware once we do that. We put out signage, and then we also do news releases and those sorts of things. We do allow campfires in some of our campgrounds that, you know, where we have the proper, you know, folks that are patrolling and they're talking to people on a regular basis. The clearances are taken care of, and those fire rings are made of certain substances where, you know, we're more comfortable having some of those fires, but that's the only area that you're allowed to have any sort of campfire in.
Are there any of those in the South Yuba Canyon?
No.
Hi, my name is Brad P. Simer. I actually have a house in North San Juan as
And
well.
closer to the microphone,
Sorry.
because I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. My name is Brad P. Simer. I actually have a house in North San Juan as well as another residence in the backside Altus here. And I'm in the canyon quite a bit. The one problem that I see there is real simple one. You don't have any communications in that whole area. There is zip cell service there, okay? If I'm out at Illinois Crossing and I need to hike my fat self out, okay, it's gonna be 15 to 20 minutes before I get out to my car. It's gonna be another 7 to 10 minutes before I get into cell service range. That's a half hour. By that time, you guys have got possible aircraft coming in an hour later. That's giving you an hour and a half start on a nice fire, okay, versus a cell phone, which it would have cut off at least half an hour out of that window. Okay? The other thing is, too, is that there's plenty of federal money for getting cell service in this area. Okay? Some people would sit there and say, no, we don't want to have cell service in this area, but we need to have some kind of communications. Okay.
Brad, if I can answer that, there has been an effort for several years now to have either AT&T or Verizon actually provide some sort of, and even if it was just temporary during the summer, to put up cell towers so that there would be service. And both AT&T and Verizon have declined to put the infrastructure in because it is not profitable.
Well, I know that there is a federal program that will basically pay about 92 or 94% of the money involved with installing these, because this is considered, I think, to be a critical communication area.
You want to take the project on?
You're on. It's one of the ones I'm actually working on right now.
Okay,
but,
great.
You know, communications is paramount, I think, and I bet you'd all agree that us understanding where these fires are, and you know, is one of the first keys. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Jordan.
I will kind of go back from Japan and the future of cell towers to maybe just the next couple of months here. And I was talking to some people. By the way, my name is Jordan Fisher Smith, and I'm a resident of Nevada City. I was talking to some people in fire recently about the economics of prevention, fire prevention versus fire suppression. And everybody that's ever worked in fire, I think, has a little bit of a beef about how much money there is, you know, for the emergency of fire suppression, and how difficult it is sometimes to fund fire prevention, and especially employee time, manpower, and so on. So it seems to me, you know, that there's nothing you can do if people think signs are invalid, as somebody has said. And I think the only thing you can do if they think the sign is invalid is you have to get people on foot patrol. And you really can't get volunteers to make contacts with people that can get nasty. You can certainly, I think that SYRCL's people have been doing a fantastic job down on the river. I see people picking up waste. I see them cleaning up, getting people to take care of their dog waste. I see a lot of public information being given at Purdon's. They've been doing a fantastic job. But there's a certain number of people that they want to do what they want to do. My question to the assembled intelligentsia of fire and land management is, how do we get money out of the state Senate and the state legislature for emergency funding for patrol? Has anybody ever tried getting emergency appropriations, or how do we get through the next couple of months to get, and do we even have the people? You know, when you get a guy or a woman out of a patrol car and 20 minutes or half an hour, 45 minutes up a trail, they're not available for other things. We're already spread so thin, especially, I know you guys are spread really thin. So curious about this business of getting emergency appropriations for patrol.
Hey, Jeff, you want to start?
Sure. I think from this Jeff?
No,
sorry.
I meant our
Another Jeff.
sheriff, Captain Pettitt.
Okay, Jeff Pettitt from the Sheriff's Office. Yeah, it is important to get those people out there. I know from a county level, staffing, it is an issue. We have a total of 974 square miles that we cover with our deputies out on patrol. And like Jordan said, getting somebody out and away from their patrol vehicle, walking in on a trail when they're coverage area can go from, well, for those of you that are familiar with South County, from the Bear River up to the Grass Valley city lines and everywhere east and west. You're hesitant to get them that far away from their vehicles. With that being said, when our officers do get down there, one of the things they do is, they're getting out of their vehicles and they're making as much contact as they can with the people that are entering these areas, advising them that just Friday, I was out at Purdon, and there were issuing some citations for some people out of San Francisco, which was surprising because there were a lot of vehicles from like out of town, and you kind of makes you aware of how popular these places are, because this is down Purdon Road, and those of you that travel down there, it's not an easy road to get down here, and I'm seeing these cars from San Francisco going, dear Lord, I can't find half the stuff in San Francisco. How'd they find this place? But when you get down there, it's talking to these people. I can't tell you how many people I stop and talk to, and I ended up spending a couple hours down there talking to people about the concerns of fire, of packing out what you pack in, and the parking issues that we see, and why they're an issue when they come down that road and they say, you just drove down this road. Imagine driving a fire truck down and coming around this corner and you're having a hard time, parking your Subaru Outback. What's a fire truck going to do? What's going to happen? So as far as your question regarding getting the funding from the state, I know that's not somewhere that the Sheriff's Office has looked at, primarily because our area of responsibility down along the river is kind of narrowed by the state park.
I think I was referring to the fire prevention guys at CAL FIRE and frankly state parks. When we had a governor's protection detail, we always seemed to be able to get somebody from someplace else. But state parks has the entry points, and state park people have a history of going out on trails. I don't see how you guys could even do it.
I guess I'll let you answer that.
Matt?
Okay, great question. So effectively, 5 years ago, we had twice the staff as we do now. And as I explained early on, we can't always say this across the board, but I think I have one of my most dedicated, hard-working staffs I've ever had. You see me out here today, too, as the Chief Ranger of the Sierra District, and my area of responsibility, I come down and I fill a shift. I used to have management responsibilities outside of it for land management, but I fill a peace officer shift. And yes, when we had a canine handler and extra rangers, we could more strategically plan on what we were doing. And now we're more of definitely a reactionary force. As Parks has kind of gravitated more towards a revenue generation neutral model. We had this conversation in 2011 where the South Yuba River was under threat of closure, and something I didn't mention in my original conversation when I introduced myself was that we have tremendous partners in the county with SYRCL and their volunteers, the community at large, everyone. And when it takes that whole community to manage it, but we've lost that staff, and we have an injury now, and it makes it even more difficult to establish areas where we're going to strategically try to maintain order. There were people before me who started this at the South Yuba River as a project and moved it on to what it is as a state park now. And I could tell you frankly that I'm just trying to hold on to the positions that I have and trying to keep people, just like the fire guys are talking about, and I totally respect what they're doing. It's incredible. And I have to say the same thing for our guys. They're going to lose 10 to 15 pounds a year over the summer. And then after the summer, they're going to be dealing with another population of people that are going to move into the river system. And there really isn't a defined off-season like we used to have. So that resource is not getting a break. And people keep coming. And when we're doing that ask to the governor's office and everything else, there's really not a community or a county that's done it better than Nevada County. You guys have saved parks. You've helped us maintain the staff that we have. But I have to say it's as challenging an environment as we've ever had. We write hundreds of citations. We do numerous medicals. We try to interpret and educate as much as we can, and that has some impact. But when we're talking about signs on trees and things like that, our signage on a weekly basis is vandalized and torn out. Picnic tables are stolen. So really it's going to take a community effort, and I think that the ask has to come, continually from from you guys. We're trying to do our best. We try to maintain places like 49 Crossing and Bridgeport. We do get into the other areas where we're talking about today, Edwards Crossing and Purdon and Jones Bar, these other areas where we try to be responsive when there's complaints, but you're seeing a challenge of that's put before us of trying to keep the staff that we have and try to build on something so we don't have to be such a reactionary force, that we can actually plan ahead, be progressive in our thinking, think ahead, plan ahead on what we're trying to do. And that's challenging because our people hit the ground. Most of their work is done on foot. They'll get, in 105, 110 degrees of heat with wearing their equipment. They might get a mile, they might get 20 feet from their vehicle, and they'll get a call if they can hear it on their radio. So there's some significant challenges out there. We're trying to do our best, but I think Jordan just outlined it perfectly. It is a resource issue across the board, and we have this property. It's being loved to death sometimes, and we're trying to do our best with managing it.
Now, for the other Jeff.
What I was going to say is I think that just mirror a lot of what was already said, but there is a point where there are no legal fires in this canyon, period. And the people that are having them are people that they need a reminder and they need a ticket. And the only way to do that is really get out there. And what I'd like to see is we need to get some cooperative agreements, and I'd love to, get our rangers with the state parks and with the sheriffs, and that's something we would really like to do. So I'm open to that. I will help in any way I can. I'm not a law enforcement guy, but I do know them and I work with them, and I'll try my very best to get them out there. That is an issue that I see, because I'm in that canyon quite often, and I'll see people burning fires in places you just wouldn't believe. And those people just need that reminder and that $300 ticket or $400 ticket, whatever it is, because that's what's going to change behavior.
And then further upstream, Shelly, what can be done?
And one thing I just wanted to, there was a couple of things that have come up that I'd like to address a little bit. One, when it comes to patrols and getting out on the ground, I think that the community could really help out there too, because sometimes just that a little bit of peer pressure, I know that sounds whatever, but I really feel like if you're seeing folks out there and you're using the South Yuba Canyon, if you can talk to them, I know it can be maybe a little bit intimidating or scary sometimes too, because you don't know who they are, and it can be for our own patrols as well, because we have 11 patrols on the forest, and they're out every day, definitely on National Forest System land. Not as much in the canyon, being that that's not our actual direct protection area. But I do think that awareness and education, sometimes those folks that are using the canyon that have illegal campfires, it's obviously way later in the evening as well. And so if you're seeing that happen, also, if you're making a phone call, I know there's no cell service down there, but once you get out, to just let somebody know that there is a campfire in there, that would be helpful as well. When it comes to the cell service, that's something I'd really like to explore, because even for anyone that's using that canyon, if something happens, whether it be a fire occurs or someone's injured in some way, it's a real risk down in there, not having any form of communication. Even our radio systems, when we're down there in certain areas, we have dead spots. So even, that being in place is not always foolproof. So that's what I would address with that.
Caleb, from your perspective.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up on this idea of getting the community more involved in setting standards at the river. And really, from a technical point of view, the lack of communication is the #1 impediment. It restricts where the volunteers can go. The river ambassadors, SYRCL's river ambassadors, are officially volunteers of the state park and covered by their insurance, which means they are in radio contact with dispatch. And so they're limited on where they can be based on communication. And I want to say that state parks have been, especially the leadership of Matt Green, have been terrific partners in developing this program. 5 years ago, we sat there and went, we need a presence on the river. These numbers are getting incredible. And we were able to hire a couple river captains to provide continuity and recruit 12 volunteers. We are now 5 years in with 4 river captains and 50 volunteers. We're out there Memorial Day to Labor Day, every weekend at the 4 crossings, Saturday and Sunday, 10 to 2 each, but 2 crossings each weekend. In that 5 years, we've had face-to-face conversations with over 23,000 visitors. And that number is significant because a conversation is on one of 4 topics. And it's basically everybody gets, if you pack it in, pack it out. No glass at the river. If they're with dogs, we ask them to clean up after their dog. That's been probably the biggest epiphany for people in this watershed, was like, oh, my dog waste contaminates the river. That's been a big issue. But the last one is fire, and we are constantly talking about fire, and if we see anybody with a backpack, we talk to them about fire. So we're making real conversations on these topics, but we're limited by the lack of good communication with law enforcement, and that is sorely needed. And I agree, I think we need cell service. I think about this young man who just died up near Emerald Pools on the South Yuba. If he'd had a cell, he wouldn't have been out there so many days if there'd been coverage out there. And it's just such a tragedy, and I think that we should prioritize getting communication for law enforcement, and then next, getting communication in the canyon for all of us, because that will make it, as Brad said, you can call in the smoke immediately. And we heard the chief say, how important minutes are. So in terms of eyes and ears, I would really challenge this community to work with SYRCL. I would love to see us not just at 2 bridges every weekend, at all 4 bridges every weekend, on Friday nights and Thursday nights and Wednesday nights, because people are coming all summer long. 700,000 people, that's a lot of people to talk to. What if we had 100 volunteers? What if we had 2 or even 300 volunteers? And what we're asking people to do at a minimum is 3 4-hour shifts. So if you think that you could do 3 4-hour shifts next summer, contact SYRCL, yubariver.org, and volunteer to be a river ambassador, because we thought at first that these conversations would be scary or dangerous, but we train everybody in state park rules. We train them in nonviolent communication and how to, de-escalate a situation. We teach them about leave no trace ethics, and we teach people to be loving to folks, because as Robin said, 99% of the people who come love the river as much as we do. They just don't know, and we need to tell them. And then the next level of volunteers is way beyond this program, but I would love to see a volunteer program that works with law enforcement, like in other countries, where people are properly certified as volunteers to work with county sheriffs and others, and to go out at night. And I know I've had over a dozen people contact me at SYRCL who are trained in search and rescue, former military, former or current military, retired police, Forest Service, et cetera, who would jump at the chance to serve the community and report fires. And I think that's something that we should really investigate, the feasibility of getting trained volunteers in the field for nighttime duty.
Okay. Let's get back to the questions.
Okay, my name is Lee Hudson, and I own the property that is in between State Park and BLM, that little patch of white there down from Spring Creek.
And you are pointing, for our radio listeners, you are pointing at the map of the South Yuba Canyon with the various ownerships, the public lands, and the white on the map being private lands.
That's correct. And we have squatters, homeless people, miners. God knows what they do down there. I see it sometimes after they've gone. But that's another subject. That's not, I'm going to get back to that, Caleb. But I have 3 questions or 3 comments. My first is, I always thought if I was down there and a fire came, I'd run down to the river and just hang out inside the water somewhere. Then it came to my attention somewhere along the line that if that should occur under certain conditions, the oxygen would be sucked up by the fire and I would be suffocated. Does anyone know anything like that? I mean, am I going to be safer on the river or is it going to be worse?
Do we have a fire behavior specialist?
There's some truth to the use of the oxygen by the fire, but it wouldn't probably affect you. But yeah, it can suck the oxygen out of the air.
Well, I'll keep my head
But you're
low.
asking which direction to go?
Well, out would be preferable, but
Go
but there may not-
opposite, yeah, the way that fire's going, and don't let it catch up to you.
Right. The second point is one of the things I would like to see, I think, because I'm more into prevention, but after the fact, if there is a fire, shouldn't we have, and this is a financial consideration, obviously, at least one, possibly more dedicated airplanes 24/7 who could go out once there is a report and from some of our local airports so that we could have access, because I don't know how you're going to get access to any part of my land.
I can answer that too. We have, well, one, aircraft are very expensive. They're hard to
Right.
come by. The two we have here are the reason that it's still green in this county is what I'm convinced of. They're very effective, and we have others nearby that can be here in 10 to 15 minutes, like from Chico and then from Columbia.
But are they 24/7?
No air
That's-
tanker is.
Well, I think we need
We
that.
don't fly at night.
Oh, well, but you could, couldn't you?
Someday. We're looking, it's not aircraft.
Lee, would you drive
Oh,
down
through the
Puerto
smoke?
Road
No.
at night?
Oh, yes.
But
And I have
with
to
no
go.
lights?
I have to go here pretty quick, but there's one important thing you said. It doesn't matter right now, but it really does. You said that you have people on your property
All
doing
the time.
mischievous. Okay. If that came up in a court of law that you knew they were there,
I don't know until I
there
get
is
there.
some responsibility on your part to make sure those people aren't there. And if they cause a fire, arson, because they don't have permission to be there on your fire or on your property, I'm not a legal expert, but there is some responsibility in land ownership in having those people there. So it's behoove you to try to manage that as best you can. I
And-
know it's asking a lot, but just know that there is some responsibility.
One of the things I was told is I need to hang no trespassing signs
Yeah.
every 100 feet. And you know how long they
Yep.
stay? About as long as what you all
Yeah.
were talking about. BLM made a beautiful kiosk for me where it said, as you're hiking down the trail, you're now entering private property. This is a nature preserve. And so that lasted 3 days. It was big. These were 4x4 pieces of lumber that got pulled apart and thrown into the river. So BLM came out and did it again. I'm not even going to ask you anymore.
Let's ask our sheriff's representative about
Right.
squatters.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things you can do is if these people are trespassing on your property and you ask them to leave and they don't, give us a call.
These are people I don't even know they're there because I'm not there. I don't live there. This is,
Okay.
this is not a home. This is just was a beautiful campground. You'll see it, Caleb. It's not so beautiful anymore, but so these are just people that I found one of them at the bridge hitchhiking to mother truckers the other day, and I realized afterward, oh, that's where he came from, my place.
Another option that you can do is file a letter with us, that describes your property by APN or something like that, to where you don't have to be there. And if we come across these people
Yes.
on your property, then we can take action.
Thank you.
Because we already have a letter saying that nobody's supposed to be there. And that action may be just simply saying, hey, this is private property. The owner has asked us to make sure that nobody's out here, and then we can have them move on from that property and back onto state property or some other.
I'll also state, please arrest them.
Thank you, Lee.
I've got
Jeff,
one more.
Wait, just one thing, Jeff. What is that letter called? Does it have a?
I don't know if it has we call it a trespass letter. I believe it's on our website. If you go to mynevadacounty.com click on departments and go to sheriff. There should be a link there. If there's not, I'll get one on there. But it's a letter. We do it for a lot of out of town. A lot of people own property up here. However, it's going to be their retirement, or where they have future plans to build a home there. And so I remember along Maybert Road was always a big area that had a lot of problems, and we would take these letters because they weren't there and they weren't seeing it, and we were having these problems of people camping and starting fires. We started getting these letters in our files, and we get them updated. I think every year we'd have you update the letter, just saying that you want us to continue the way we've been doing. And then what that does is, like I said, if you don't see it, you're not there. We understand that there's a lot of property owners like that, so that's the way that we direct most people who don't have a home on the property to proceed with that.
Thank you. I shall definitely look into that tonight. The next thing that I want to comment on is I'm very familiar with that comprehensive management plan. I was involved with it from day one to forever. I commented, I think I submitted, I believe it was a 36-page comment. BLM declined to print it, even though you're supposed to print the comments that are generated. However, I could understand that. But I want to reiterate what I said because it's pertinent to this. Because it's not about how many parking places are available or what the toilet capacity is. And by the way, if they take it in, take it out, doesn't just mean dog poop, okay? It's not about how many garbage containers. It's not really about population capacity. What I was stressing was it's about the river's capacity to handle this much intrusion, whether it's people, feces, urine, sunscreen, thank you, Arlene, and miscellaneous toxic cosmetics. The river can't handle that. So I would like to, I really love, Jordan, what you said about having some kind of enforcement. That would help me out a lot, not just personally, but also with respect to my feelings about the river and protecting it.
I think we got an offer from BLM to work.
I want to say, if you remember, the whole notion of having wild and scenic Yuba River was insane. It was impossible. Could never be done, but we did it. So you know what else? We can do this. Yes, we can.
Hi,
Thanks, Lee.
Oh, hi. My name is Andrew Werderich, and I just want to say thank you to everyone that is partaking in this effort to help out and protect what we have. I have a question about taking pictures of cars that are parked illegally. We live near Edwards, and I see some of the craziest parking that I've ever seen. And I wonder if they're getting towed, and I wonder if they're getting tickets, and if a photograph was taken of that license plate in that car, does that have any credence to give to a law enforcement to have them get a ticket in the mail or a warning?
Okay, well, Jeff Pettitt again from the Sheriff's Office. So the cars are getting ticketed. Within the last 35 days, we've written over 80 parking citations at just Purdon and Edwards, just those two locations in the county. So yes, they're getting ticketed. If they need to be moved, if they're blocking access, they will get towed. As far as being able to cite and do something after the fact, it's a little difficult for law enforcement to do that. However, we ourselves do, when we do issue a citation, our deputies are photographing it for their own purpose to put into our records management system, because everybody has a right to appeal those citations. And so when somebody comes in, and a lot of times we would just get a citation that says no parking, and our citations, you see, if you haven't seen it, it's a parking citation, you check a box, and it really no description on that. And what we found were a lot of people would come in and get the citations overturned. Well, we take photos of all the vehicles, and it's really not hard. Half of them are parked under a no parking sign. And so you take take a snapshot of that, and when they come in and they say, well, I didn't know, is the biggest thing. They need better signs down there. Okay, maybe, but you're under one. So I don't know how much better we can get. So that's on.
Okay, I have another thing to say. Also, just want to reiterate the community's part in this, and whether we sign up to volunteer, I think we all have the ability to volunteer in any moment, and we can. I think if you're willing and able to break the ice with someone you don't know down by the river and say hello, and you look at them and you identify, there's a connection, and I think we can connect more. And my family and I are constantly asking people to pick their stuff out, and even encouraging them to tell other people to pick their stuff out. So it's this like chain of events that can possibly help. I don't know.
It takes a village.
It takes a village.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
And it really, and again, thanks to all of you for coming. And we have more people lined up. The one thing that I don't want us to forget is prevention, because it is. I think it is much cheaper to do prevention or preventative maintenance. It's always cheaper than to fight a fire. So prescribed burning maybe, and we have so much. We have these dead trees that are in the canyon. Everybody has dead pines, and the bark beetles are here, and it's only going to get worse. And I'm just wondering if there is any way that we could maybe have more good fires in the canyon. Is there, Jennifer?
All right, so again, Jennifer Hinckley. I'm prescribed fire specialist for the Tahoe National Forest. Lee, you were talking about prevention and you went right into air resources. Those are two different things. Air resources don't prevent fires. They mostly suppress them, and they're extremely expensive. But over time, we can make a plan to prevent a fire by reducing the fuels that you have on your property, that we have on all of our land management, all of the land that's along the canyon, excuse me. And then, and if we reduce the fuels, we can actually allow fire to do what it's naturally supposed to do. But this is a long-term talk. This is not a 5-minute fix. And so I just wanted to clear up that when you're talking about prevention and you're throwing the air resources in there, that really is. You were shifting gears right now while you were speaking. Yes.
Lee,
and we do have a CWPP. We have a CWPP for
What is a
Nevada County.
CWPP?
Community-wide protection plan. It's being revised currently, and it talks about how projects that are inside the county and projects that need to be finished. It helps find grants to work on the projects on public lands, or on some public lands, and on private lands. So there is a representative for that in the building currently. And then, and so my spiel would be that if we actually start thinking about what we want in the future, the canyon to look like. Do you want really big trees? Do you want it to be clean so it's a nice, beautiful park? That takes work. It takes reducing the fuel. It takes burning, or letting a wildfire creep in and move around like it used to. And so that's something that we should move towards. That's something that the Forest Service is moving towards, and definitely the Tahoe National Forest, and you'll see it happen in the next few years.
One other thing, just really quickly, to make a point on that, is that we're talking about folks that are starting illegal fires, okay? But we also, obviously in this area, we get fire ignitions from lightning as well. So one of the things that we all have to be mindful of as a community is to understand that when those fires occur, when we have lightning fires occur, how can we effectively manage those fires? How are we able to get folks in there? So what Jennifer's talking about and what we need to maybe work toward, even cooperating across agencies, is where we can do some strategic fuels reduction work, so that we're able to get people in there more easily. They have better access. We can get down in there with our fire engines, with folks with tools, and they can be effective in that canyon. So that's kind of maybe that bigger picture piece that we need to think about as well.
Effective and safer. It's safer when the fuels are lower.
Let's go to the next question. And oh, by the way, Matt Wallen had to leave. He has now been assigned to the pilot fire down in San Bernardino. That fire started late yesterday afternoon, and the last update that I got is it's now close to 7,000 acres.
Wow.
But he is now being replaced on the panel with our very own John Hotchkiss, who is a fire prevention officer as well. And John is actually one of these of the officers that I heard on the radio when the Yuba fire was going, talking about seeing all these campfires. So he is also a good reason why we are having this today. Welcome, John.
Thanks, John. My name is Darlene Markey,
I'm Ralph Henson.
and we are two of approximately 30 people that live basically at Edwards Crossing. We are on the ridge side of Edwards Crossing. There are 15 homesteads up there. I am often told by the county no one lives there. I'm like, I remember 30 years ago saying to my husband, my gosh, there were 49 cars at the bridge today. Memorial Day weekend, I counted 200 cars at the bridge. As our lovely sheriff pointed out, everyone is parking under the no parking signs. Ralph was actually one of the people that was instrumental in getting the no parking signs. We are always in deathly fear that some emergency vehicle is going to not be able to get through, which I guess happened a few days ago. I live directly across from the South Yuba River Campground. If you guys want to know what goes on at night there, come talk to my family and I. I recently came across an old BLM volunteer badge my husband had, because he was a BLM volunteer. All of us, Ralph, Solomon back there, my children, Michael, Deanna, myself, we have all gone down to the campground or down to the river and said, hey guys, you can't have a fire. And for some reason, when my daughter went in and acted like a banshee, they thought she was like a fairy in the night. But another neighbor tried to do that, and he was treated very belligerently by some people that were down at the river. So it's dangerous for us, but I know that my kids and I, at least, who are old now, are very willing to be volunteers in the evening, going out there. We actually patrol the campground once in a while. We go down and we tell them to put out the fire. The campground has orange tape over it right now. There's orange tape all along Illinois Crossing. There seems to be some misconception about where the fire actually started. It actually started at the picnic overlook on the South Yuba Trail above, and I was the one who called it in the morning, because there were some strange people coming up the road going, what is that? And I went, oh geez, what is that? So, but I'm scared. When we talk about fuel reduction, I live next door to a BLM piece of property, 15 acres. He lives next door to a BLM piece of property. Both properties are covered with dead manzanita. I bought the property next door to me to clean it, BLM hasn't done any fuel reduction. Sorry, I don't know if there's a BLM guy here in a long time, but they haven't done any fuel reduction there in a long time. As far as water and fire breaks, there's not too many. The road is about our only fire break. Illinois Crossing is grown in. There's a 10,000-gallon tank at the campground at Edwards. My daughter's house on the corner of Grizzly Hill and North Bloomfield, we have a fire nozzle there, but it's only a 2,500-gallon tank. Ralph and I have talked about going in on a 10,000-gallon tank there. Do you have a tank? I mean, do you have a nozzle on yours? No. No. So there's major problems, and so I was talking to my kids before I came here about what to do. The biggest thing they said is, what are the consequences for not parking down there? Now, I heard that 88 cars were ticketed over the last weekend. I don't know how often I don't even know who's ticketing, Sheriff, Highway Patrol, or State Parks, but I feel like they need to be there Saturday and Sunday. They just need to be there. And I also feel like if there's an outreach table there, I'm happy to go sit there some Saturdays. I actually leave notes on people's cars that say, this is a thoroughfare, because we'll try to get to town any given day, and there's like one time there's people camped like with their lawn chairs on the bridge or lollygagging down, and we can't get past them, and they don't know that above them There's not just our neighborhood, but there's also North Columbia, there's also Malakoff Diggins, there's also Bowman Lake and Graniteville. That's the access road to all of that area. So there's tons of recreation going on right where I live. That's where people come up and they camp and they hike and they bike and they ride their ATVs. By the way, when the campground was closed, that didn't stop people from camping. We know that. We had next door to Ralph's property is where that guy was squatting a few years ago and had the fires, and there was some shooting. Yes, going fast, going too slow. I'm sorry. Okay. So my kids say they want to see more enforcement, and they want to know what the consequences are. They want to see more active patrol. They are willing to be BLM volunteers or any kind of volunteers as long as they can go out and say, hey, I can put out this fire. We'd like to see more outreach out the bridge. We'd like for the media to get involved. And I don't just mean you, Miss Pascal. I mean everybody. I would love it if the union put in a big piece and said, you will be ticketed, not you might be ticketed.
Hey, you know what, Darlene? Alan is actually right here.
I know, I just talked to him on the phone. And I'd like to see more fire breaks and more easier access for emergency vehicles.
Okay. Thank you. Just very briefly, Josh Battalion Chief Sunde has left because he is going right now to a medical rescue on Independence Trail. So he is being replaced by the Deputy Fire Marshal and Terry McMahon, who's here, and Terry, who's also really knows this canyon very well, who has hiked more miles probably than he cares. Welcome, Terry.
So I'm Ralph, and I will only take 2 minutes and 38 seconds. So I have a quick question, though. Anybody know how much that fire cost? The one that was just near Edwards Crossing? Estimate?
I don't have a full cost summary for
that
it yet.
That would be, John, can you identify yourself for the radio?
Sure. Yes. John Hotchkiss with CAL FIRE Fire Prevention. I don't have the cost packet in yet for that, for a full development of what the cost factors are on it. Anytime we use dozers and aircraft, that has a tendency to drive the price tag up dramatically on any kind of an incident response. That was an air show early on. The air tankers were very instrumental in being able to successfully hold that fire in check until we were able to get helicopters and dozers in there in order to make improvements and cut fire breaks and make access for our crews. So anytime you're talking about extended use of aircraft like that, that has a tendency to run the bill up dramatically.
$50,000? $80,000?
I couldn't even hazard a guess as an
So
estimate.
I'm Ralph
I
Henson,
apologize.
and I've lived since 1981 on Grizzly Hill Road, a mile and a half up from Edwards Crossing. So I've watched the evolution of the issues at Edwards Crossing over the years. We've had murder there, suicide, lots of automobile accidents requiring rescue, people breaking their legs, falling off the trail, bicycles falling into the river. I think we've had a couple of fires before this also. To appreciate the issues with access, I did a couple of videos, so go to youtube.com and go to Edwards Crossing. The crossing was with an X, and there are two videos I put up. One was from July 3rd, and it shows probably a couple of hundred cars, and twice as many cars as I've ever seen at Edwards Crossing in all those years. And then there's another video showing the issues with access. Amazingly, on July 3rd, there weren't that many illegally parked cars, but then another video I put up from about a week later shows the issues. I drive down the road. You can see that I can barely drive my little Toyota pickup down the road, and I encounter a few vehicles along the way. And I would like to, somebody said something about talking to people when you see them parking illegally. I was at the river the other day after the fire when North San Juan Volunteer Fire Department was there. There was a guy parked right in front of an emergency vehicle under a no parking sign, and I did have some words with him, and he ignored me, so I had some more words with him. And I thought I was going to get punched there, so I don't recommend, stay in your car at least.
That's really good advice.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Don't get
Yeah.
yourself into a situation. Don't don't get yourself into another hazardous situation, because otherwise, besides coming and putting out a fire, then these guys also need to come, and there's going to be medical and law enforcement, and then we really have a traffic jam.
Well, he told me that I was going to need an emergency vehicle. But there's no magic bullet. Writing citations is great. Towing cars is not going to work at Edwards Crossing, because you can't tow cars there on the dirt side of the road, because you'd have to back up about a half mile with your tow vehicle, and then extracting vehicles out of there would just be impossible. So you need maybe a helicopter with a big magnet. I don't know. So writing citations is great. Maybe towing some people on the paved side of the road would help out. But the idea of a river ambassador, not a SYRCL one, but maybe some other ambassador who is a volunteer who comes under the auspices of maybe BLM and the Sheriff's Department and parks, et cetera, I think is a great idea. And most people, when you point out that they're parking under a no parking sign, will move. There are a few who won't move. And I think education, that's going to be by far the best way to do that. So I'm willing. I live just down the road, so maybe one day a month or so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm Robin Milam, and I'm also a SYRCL River Ambassador. And no, you don't have to be named Robin to be a SYRCL River Ambassador. And it is a fabulous program. One of the aspects, I love doing it, and it's a great pleasure to do it. And one of the things that makes it easy is that I know that the State Parks Service does come through on a regular basis, and it's real easy for us to be the good guy and as an ambassador and simply say, they do ticket. Last Sunday they ticketed X number of cars and they were towing. And it's a real easy way for us to graciously reinforce the rules and to create greater safety. My question is, I actually live out in the county very close to where the Lowell fire was. So you could probably speak to the Lowell fire as an example of what a fire can cost this community. But my question is, about a month ago, Pascal, I believe it was you reported that there were 12 counties who had passed a fire moratorium, and my question relates to preventing the illegal, irresponsible fires. And I raised a question to our supervisors as to whether Nevada County had issued a fire moratorium, and I got a response that sounded like we were going to, but I haven't seen anything to that effect. Is it legal to have a fire on private property in Nevada County right now?
So according to state law, on private property you can have a cooking, warming, or ceremonial fire. However, you are responsible. If the fire escapes, you are responsible, and you can be liable. And if the fire escapes into your neighbor's property, your neighbor can have a civil claim against you. And also the suppression fire people can also, because if you are negligent, negligence is negligence, and sometimes it can go into arson. I mean, John probably can speak pretty well to that.
Can you speak to what a moratorium actually is? And
I believe what you were referring to, those were actually fire restrictions that went into effect. Those are fire restrictions, and that banned the debris burning, so burn piles. And that is something that is not done on a county-wide basis. That's actually done by CAL FIRE. And then you have further fire restrictions that are by the various agencies, so the Forest Service and BLM and state parks, they all pass their own fire restrictions. It's not really done county by county. But I think John can probably answer that better.
I can. John Hotchkiss with CAL FIRE again. So to answer the first question with respect to the burn ban proclamation, which I think is what you're referring to, Nevada County was one of the counties which was affected by the burn ban proclamation, which was put into place late spring, early summer. Basically what that speaks to is dooryard residential burning. So for folks who are out there having debris burns in their yard in order to be able to manage their vegetative waste, things like that, that's where that comes into play. It prohibits them from being able to have those dooryard fires. Now, with respect to the cooking, warming, or ceremonial type fires that Pascal was talking about, one of the things that comes into play with that is that only counts on somebody's personal private property where they have legal standing to be. So if you own your own property, or you're a tenant on property and have permission from the landlord to have a cooking, warming, or ceremonial fire, that's okay. If you're just out on somebody's random property or public lands, that's not. That quickly crosses into the bounds of arson at that point in time when you burn someone else's property, regardless of what the reason is. With state parks and with Bureau of Land Management land or U.S. Forest Service land, there's individual restrictions which come into play based on those individual jurisdictions for how they manage those respective parks, campgrounds, etc. So I would have to defer to them for each particular location as far as what their rules or policies are that they have in place. And the same is with city jurisdictions. So as an example, within Nevada City, I know they have a burn ban prohibiting burning within the city limits of Nevada City, regardless of whether it's a burn day or not. Any time of the year you can't do it.
Okay. All right, next. John.
Paul, did you set this up? How do you do? My name is John Timmer, and I have, I want to thank all the first responders here, both law enforcement and fire protection. And I think your job might be a little bit easier if you had a few more resources. I think that's what I'm hearing from just about everyone down the line. We were talking a little bit about the management plan that is already on the. It's not, maybe it's a book, maybe it's not on the books.
I think it's actually on the books. I think that every agency actually adopted that management plan.
Okay. So the way to make it actually come into play would be how?
The way to make the management plan be funded?
Yes.
The South Yuba would have to become a federal wild and scenic river, which is not very different from a state wild and scenic river.
What steps would we have to take as a community to do that?
Caleb, can you take that one?
I can handle some of that, I think. To get a federal wild and scenic status is a congressional action. So you would have to get your board of supervisors to say, this is something we want, and then it has to go up the chain to congressional, and then a congressman has to put forth a bill, and the bill has to be voted on, and that's how it works.
Actually, I think
and
it's a little
what
bit
about
different.
the governor? What about the governor?
The governor is not involved. In federal, it's a congressional action.
But my understanding was a state wild and scenic, if you have state wild and scenic, a governor can ask the Secretary of the Interior to include a state wild and scenic into
you can. The governor could do that. That could be something that is true, but it still takes a congressman to do that.
I don't think it takes the congressman at all. It just takes talking to the governor. It'd be nice to have a congressman on your side, but I don't think we have that.
to get a bill through Congress, you're going to have a congressman on your side. I mean,
but we don't need the bill. All we need to do is talk to the governor. The governor can talk to the Secretary of the Interior, and it becomes a federal wild and scenic river at that point.
It's possible, yeah.
It's true.
Well, then, because that would be the way to get some of our tax dollars actually for this management plan, and you agencies would actually have some funding to do. Hey, blank check question. What would you do if you had funding? What would you do for the South Yuba? Let's start start right here, Jeff Pettitt. If funding, it's the blank check question. Come on.
If funding's not an issue?
Yeah.
Well,
and don't say helicopters.
I was going to go drone, but no, we don't have drones.
Yet.
You know, our biggest, and I don't want to skirt around the answer, but I'm going to. Our biggest issue right now isn't for the sheriff's office isn't funding. It's getting deputies hired. Period. We have positions that we can't fill because of a myriad of reasons. Mostly, there's not a lot of people that want to work in my career field for some reason right now. I'm not sure why. However, that's one of our biggest problems. We have the Nevada County. We have funding for personnel. We are just having a problem getting those personnel to pass a background and that would be a fit for this community. We have a very high standards at the sheriff's office, and we're not willing, the sheriff is not willing to lower those standards to put boots on the street. We owe it to you, the citizens, to maintain that level of professionalism, and so, at times it makes it difficult to hire qualified people. So that's my take on that.
Okay. Matt, blank check.
I'll still take the blank check.
So Matt Green, State Parks. I think if we could, you're talking about the management plan. A couple of things were put out here. I'll just touch on them real quick. And first, just the primary question. It's staff for us. We have to develop the position through the state legislature. It has to be approved, and then we can fill it through a civil service process with one of our peace officers. And so we just don't have those positions to fill, and automatically that'd probably bring us back up to where we were 5 years ago, and we'd have some reasonable effectiveness in some of these areas that we're talking about. Secondarily, I know we've talked about volunteers a lot, and it is fantastic backbone of our operations across here in state parks. But what we're finding too is just a couple of the incidents that were raised here is that trying to protect our volunteers and to keep them safe, and trying to limit the risk and liability to you as the taxpayer also. So one of the things that we've seen is, gosh, our volunteer base is growing, and it's fantastic. But on the other side of it, our resource to manage and that capacity to manage is shrinking. So as that happens, we're seeing greater liability with less ability to manage them. So the blank check, would be more ranger staff out on that river. And that would bring us back to a level, even talking 5 years ago. And that would have an impact about the things that we're talking about on state park property. We talked about fires a little bit too. We don't allow fires on our property. We try to do work on BLM and other contiguous properties. We've probably written this year, I've heard 80 to 90 citations outside of the park along the highways, both with our citations and the county. But it really does take more staff to do it. And if I had the blank check, that's where I'd spend it.
A blank check for a volunteer fire department.
So, Boyd Johnson, Battalion Chief, North San Juan Fire Department. We have a proposal for a very modest check, and I'd like to ask Fire Captain Jefferson Wilson, who's my technical advisor, to talk about what that is.
I'm Jefferson Wilson, Captain North San Juan. This kind of segues a little bit into what Captain Pettitt was kind of joking about aside there. And it is the year 2016, and it is technologically feasible and now economically feasible to utilize drones. So this question goes out to Shelly and to John and to Jeff. I don't know if there is an official policy or if there is some logistical concerns or liability concerns with doing this, but H-20 isn't always available. Our CHP helicopter, which is a godsend in the canyon for those of us who've plucked numerous people out of there, and tried to locate people, whether that be in the day or at night with thermal imaging on the helicopter. But now it's become reasonably cheap and easy and dependable to do this with drones that don't really cost much more. $15,000 max for really something you can stick in the air for about 30 minutes. You can run it on a preset course at night with FLIR or thermal imaging technology. You can geo tag thermal signatures, all kinds of stuff. Fun robots, flying robots. It's 2016. Why don't we have them?
Okay, so for North San Juan, North San Juan Fire Department would be a rather sophisticated drone. Okay. Hey, $15,000. How many people are here from the North San Juan side of the river? Would you please, Hey, that's quite a few. So, would you please get busy? And your fire department needs $15,000. So, and I want to see that drone.
So I guess part of my question is there a policy for Shelly and John and for search and rescue? I know search and rescue comes into the jurisdiction of Nevada County Sheriff.
Well, John Hotchkiss with CAL FIRE. Speaking on behalf of CAL FIRE, I know that it's one of the things which is being revisited by our director's office down as far as the utilization of drones or other robot-type aircraft. Obviously, one of the big issues and concerns with us anytime we have any kind of an active fire situation is as soon as a drone goes up, our air tankers land. That's it. Our air operations have to stop. However, for reconnaissance purposes, that's one of the things that we're revisiting, the practicality of being able to use them. Certainly there's some limitations with some of that technology which has to be addressed, worked out as far as airtime, time on station for whatever that aircraft is, and the type of feedback that we're going to get from it, but it's something that's being looked at.
Yeah, and similar with the federal agencies, it really comes down to when we have active fires in the area and dealing with those airspace conflicts that could occur. So there's nothing, though, as far as being able to do some sort of observation with drones. The one thing I would mention, too, is that right now we're looking at some pretty high-tech camera options as well that will be placed in strategic locations on the forest where we have a hard time seeing down into certain areas. And so that kind of thing is also occurring on the forest. It's kind of moving, it was more on the east side of the forest, and now we're moving it more toward the west side. And so we're looking at, certain areas that are really challenging for us to, see down into places like the Yuba Canyon, and that kind of thing as well.
Would those be cameras like University of Nevada, Reno has?
Correct, yes.
The ones that they have around Lake Tahoe, where, by the way, they spotted quite a few
Right.
fires with those.
Yeah,
Or you
same.
can watch fires.
Yeah, we're working really closely with them right now. So.
And this is something that really came up too when a number of us who were down in the canyon doing, rescue or whatever, do find campfires, old campfires or recent campfires. And I know that, John, this came up recently with the guys who hiked in that found the head of the Yuba fire. They got down to the Yuba fire. They must have kicked into about 5 fires, 5 old fires on the way down to that fire. So, this is something it's totally feasible for us to set something on a preset course, mapped flight route through a canyon at night for 30 minutes to see if there's any fires going on and to tag those.
Jeff Pettitt from the Sheriff's Office, one of the things that we do need to take in consideration is legally, can we do that? There are some, and the laws are ever changing, but right now I believe there are specific, at least from a law enforcement standpoint, we can, if we had a drone, there would be only certain things we could fly it for, search and rescue being one, and certain type of situations, law enforcement type situations. And I think it's statewide. I don't know if CAL FIRE has a different, is there anything differently about it, but I know just being able to launch a drone and set a path and fly it, I don't know that legally the state would allow us to do that.
No, I believe we'd operate under the same parameters that the Nevada County Sheriff Department or other law enforcement agencies are held to. Anytime anything like that is going to be used for any kind of a law enforcement mission, there's some very specific guidelines which come into play with that, and a lot of it comes under search and seizure laws and things like that as far as how we can actively deploy that. So for reconnaissance purposes, if it's not going to lead to law enforcement action, completely different matter. If it's something which is going to be used for any kind of a law enforcement situation, there's a lot of legal considerations that then come into play for us to consider utilizing that resource and very narrow parameters as far as what we can use it for.
What about BLM? If you give our folks here a chance to They'll answer it.
As far as I know, we have drones. The Department of the Interior does. They're developing programs and policies, and to be honest, I don't know what they are, but that's something I can look into. I mean, to me, it sounds like a pretty good idea. I don't know that. I don't know the parameters of what the legalities would be of using them for law enforcement in particular, but I mean, certainly finding where things are would, that'd be a pretty good tool. So that's something I can look into.
My name's Saul Henson. I live up from Edwards Crossing on the ridge side, and my question is to the Public Works Fellow and to State Parks. I guess the first question is to State Parks about the parking fees that you created a couple years ago, and kind of what the success or challenges have been with respect to getting those types of fees, and then what's the potential to assess fees at the other crossings like Edwards and Purdon for funding programs for patrolling the river crossings?
Well, first, the Matt Green State Parks. First, success would be being able to keep the park staffed like we did in 2011. So major success. Fee title for our properties has to be, we can collect on our property. And the challenges are, where we don't really have capacity lots to collect. Secondarily, the ability to collect. We, throughout every year, some of our unmanned fee areas, tubes and things alike are vandalized, and we have other issues with that. So before we set up a fee program, we have to identify that area, make sure we can efficiently set up a program that's going to work and have those benefits too, like restrooms and those other things that would work. Our ratio at one of the things we discuss sometimes, the ratio with revenue to cost at South Yuba is pretty uneven. I don't like to talk about this sometimes because open space and parks, I thought they're created for a certain reason, and we love to protect them, with no cost to you guys at all. But the reality is, we make about $83,000 to $105,000 since we instituted our fee program. And at a minimum, with our very old equipment, our vehicles, and the damage that's created, and the staff that we have, we're talking about $600,000 to $700,000 a year, just on a staffing model that's probably about 40% what it was in 2012. So we've looked at areas like Purdon and maybe paving that lot and collection, but just like in the conversations we're having with our volunteers and our staff, you really have to designate somebody out there as a fee collector. You have to, those people, a lot of them mix them up as rangers sometimes, but they're really seasonal staff that are making $11 an hour. And so they're collecting, and at the American River, there's other properties that are at play that they could charge at, but the challenge on the South Yuba is we only have really a couple of parking lots that have the capacity that we can have people drive into and charge fees.
And what about the ability to charge fees on County Road up from those crossings?
Sure. Sean Powers, Community Development, Nevada County. That's a new concept for us. The county doesn't have a practice of charging for parking. It'd take a little bit of research, but I think there's a certain entitlement that allows for off-road parking in a safe manner. Our ability to charge for that would have to be researched, and also get a sense of what the county's policy would be on that. That'd be some uncharted territory for us, but I'll definitely pass that question along.
700,000 people is a lot of money.
Yeah, I would also really look at the cost-benefit ratio for that versus what's raised versus the enforcement, and as far as what resources need to be put in place to collect that.
My name is Mark Mikalski. I've been a resident above Edwards Crossing since the early 1970s. And I've had the privilege to patrol the South Yuba River as one of the first park rangers there for about 10 years. We worked on getting radio communications in and documented. We had about 250 citations a month. There were 5 rangers patrolling that area daily with 2 supervisors on top of that. One of the initial reasons or problems that we saw based on the map that you could see in front of you is all the different agencies that work and own as well as the private lands in the area. So I commend Pascal and all of the agencies to have joined in this meeting to work together. One of the things we had at the very beginning was a joint management agreement for joint patrols. So we patrolled from Washington down to Bridgeport monthly with county sheriff, BLM rangers, and state park rangers to work the different laws that applied on the different land. As budgets got tighter, that became more and more difficult, and that has stopped. We had SYRCL pick up the interpretive education efforts as well as the preservation and the political aspect of getting the public involved. What is really important, I think, and we can talk all night about the problems and the solutions and why we can't implement solutions, there's an opportunity tonight to have the public, the private sector, and all of the agencies involved working together, because fire is the unifier. There's not a person in this county or state or probably nation that could not get behind fire prevention and putting out fires once it gets started. It is a unifier that can bring everybody together. So I would hope, a result of this meeting tonight, that there would be a task force involving the different agencies, involving the public participations and the different private sector NGOs that are involved, to all work together to solve a myriad of problems. One thing we've all noticed is the increase of people here, and that's because of the great effort State Parks has done in promoting our parks, and SYRCL has done in promoting great resources, and our social media that has somehow discovered Edwards and Crossing in the recent time frame. Perhaps we could use our social media as an education opportunity. Thank you.
We are getting very close to our 2-hour mark, so I would love for all of you to come for our radio listeners, because they will leave us at 8 o'clock. We can still be here and answer questions here from the audience, but at 8 o'clock the live broadcast on KVMR FM will stop. So if you could sum up right now, what do you propose to this community? What do you bring to the community? What do you want to do, and how can we help you protect the Yuba? Jeff.
I always get to start with the fun questions. You know, one of my takeaways from this meeting is that we do have a group of people here that all have the same interests that we on the panel have, and we're all having the same type of issues with funding or manpower and the such. And I think working together, and some of the things that Caleb said, bringing volunteers and utilizing more community resources to partner with and get the word out to the people that are visiting here, because like we've learned, a lot of these people that come to the river aren't necessarily from here, and they don't have that vested interest. And maybe getting those of us that do, that live here, we raise our families here, our kids are here, our homes are here, and we want to make sure that they're safe. Getting that word out through some type of, expanded volunteer program or something like that, I think would be the biggest takeaway that I have from here. I think it's a great idea.
Matt?
Macaroon State Parks. I think Mike touched on it a little bit. Just a quick thing, the social media, and the marketing aspect, we're seeing the numbers, and we're probably at our carrying, we're above our carrying capacity. But if we could find a way through social media, because we look at sites all the time, and we kind of harvest information from sites of activities that occur and favorite spots that are popping up, and we're seeing a lot of that, and that's bringing in people from the Bay Area and other places who have, probably a lot of good intentions, want to see an incredible resource. But one of the things is we're seeing people that don't really have that vested interest. So maybe I'd like to see maybe some countering on the marketing side of it. we're going to show the river and we're going to show our resources, which we have some incredible resources here in Nevada County, the Yuba being one of them, is that we talk about, you know, ways that we could protect it. And some of the things that we're talking about now, if you're going to come, you know, have these things in mind, that we want to protect our river, we want to keep it fire safe, we want to keep it a place where families can visit. And I think that if people and our volunteers and working with our NGOs and all of our partners in the community, if we can do a better job of communicating, yes, we know you're going to come and see this incredible resource you're going to visit, but do it responsibly, because we want to keep it here for the next generation and the future generations that come. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Boyd Johnson, North San Juan Fire. What I see here is that the agencies, us up at the table, we're limited by our budgets and by our agency parameters, and that the public should get fired up about this issue and see what they can do to help us and to accomplish what they want to have done themselves.
John Hotchkiss with CAL FIRE Prevention. So a lot of these issues seem to come back to the few folks who go down there who don't have respect for other people's property. They're not safeguarding what you people hold to be so dear to you, which is the community that we live in. I would like to say that public education obviously has to be one of the big focuses that we can continue to concentrate on to try to educate those folks who don't understand when they come up here what is safe and what is expected of them when they're out here interacting in our community. But I think the continued enforcement presence needs to be there as well. As an example, on the day of the fire that we were out there, I had to go to the campground next door for somebody who was burning in one of the campfire rings. They'd gone to the length of actually pulling off the orange covering material off of the campfire ring that the Bureau of Land Management had put in. And when I questioned him about it, he showed me the note that the Bureau of Land Management actually had attached to the orange plastic that said not to burn there, and seemed completely dumbfounded when I told him that he couldn't do that. Unfortunately, that's some of the folks that we're dealing with, are people who just flagrantly disregard what those rules are. They don't have any concern or care because it's not their community. They don't live here. They're visiting. And it takes the presence of all of you, it takes the presence of everyone here at this table in order to be able to correct and fix that problem.
Sean Powers, Nevada County Community Development. What I actually see here is just a number of us at the table, but then I see so many of you at a very well attendance tonight. That's definitely our request, to be your eyes and ears for the local agencies up here. We do have those fixed resources, but obviously your resource is the best one we can bring, very cost effective, so we would ask for that continued support. I did hear a lot of new ideas and stuff that we haven't talked about, so I'm going to take those and report those back to the county and see what we can do with that. But more importantly, I did understand that there was quite the parking situation there, but now I definitely have a greater appreciation for it. I'm hearing all your woes and concerns, so in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department, we're going to see how we can keep up on that and working for you.
Shelly Allen, Tahoe National Forest. A couple of things that I'd like to see. First, Pascal, I need to answer the question that you asked about unlimited funding.
Oh, you want the blank check? Okay,
yeah,
go for the blank check.
Right, I mean, that's a big deal. So I think that we all would like to see a healthy ecosystem in the canyon.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, that can, there can be a fire that occurs in there, and we can effectively get in there, take care of that fire, and you know, be able to do that management. So in order to get there, one of the things that was talked about earlier, there's a lot of really decadent, old manzanita, things that really need to be cleaned up. And what that takes is, that takes a workforce to get in there and actually do that. There's not a lot of access, so we're talking about a lot of folks in there with chainsaws, you know, equipment, being able to work down in there effectively and be able to actually make that change in the ecosystem to eventually get to the point where when a fire does start in the the bottom of the canyon, the hair isn't like instantly standing up on the back of my neck, and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, this is coming racing into town right away. Particularly if everything lines up correctly and you know you've got a wind behind it, that can happen so fast. So what I'd like to see, if I had a blank check, would be that we would work cooperatively across the agency lines. with the BLM, with our state partners, and be able to make that work happen on the ground so that then we have that healthy ecosystem that can sustain the river itself. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
So basically, you all want to work together and have public lands be really put in holes where fuels are down and manage that. What about the private property owners? I mean, while you're there, come on.
So not even the boundary lines there, but private properties, be able to work across all boundary lines. Private homeowners, if you're interested at, those ways that we can get in there and help you all as well. So that would be where I would be coming from on that.
You're on.
So Jennifer Hinckley, Tahoe National Forest, and Shelly spoke for me.
Caleb, blank check.
Yeah, I'll take the blank check and the other question as well. I think we're very lucky to have such a great community of not only the public, but so many great public land stewards who are represented here today. I think it's one of our greatest strengths in the Yuba is that we have such concerned and diligent stewardship, but I think it is also one of our biggest challenges is overcoming county, regional, county, federal, state, et cetera, jurisdictions. And I think we do need an ongoing task force, but there's both the law enforcement and public safety issues, but there's also these larger lands management issues too. And it's not all the same people. I would certainly, really applaud the leadership over the last 4 or 5 years that Supervisor Beeson and Weston and Sheriff Royal and others have done to bring many of the people who are at this table together on an annual basis just to deal with Purdon from a law enforcement perspective. And I think we've made great gains there by bringing attention, greater parking enforcement, and letting the sheriffs and others know that as a community we have their backs, that when we call for more enforcement and people get ticketed, that we go, yeah, that's right, you deserve it, and we want that enforcement there, and thank them when they're doing what we want them to do. I think that's important. I think also we're getting tremendous work here out of the different departments, but we have to go back to what Mark was talking about and getting the agreements, the legal agreements that allow state employees to walk on federal land and cite and ticket and deal with these, cross-jurisdictional challenges. And I think what's hard is we know these are issues around communication, around enforcement, and then the year starts and the fires start and the crime spikes, and there's not a person with authority to keep bringing people back together on a short, limited agenda of items. And I would just, I don't know who that right person is. Maybe the county could take that leadership and continue since they have, but let's knock off some of these things off the to-do list. Let's get the short-term communication for law enforcement fixed and up and done in the community. And if you need money, tell the community. We can write letters, we can make phone calls. We need to hear from you like we did tonight. What do you need exactly so that we can advocate for it and then see it get put in place? I think it's important for law enforcement and everyone to understand we have your back. We just need to know what's needed and we can get to work on it. And the second is I think there's a great deal of resistance to cell phones, and I think that is archaic. I think we need to get cell phone coverage throughout the Yuba Canyon for public safety, and that's something we should work on as well. We have issues with sanitation with this many people. There are no public facilities at Purdon. There are porta potties that are being funded by SYRCL and Friends of Purdon, and it is not sustainable. It used to be that you put them up for a couple weeks, during the high summer, but with the good weather, they are now year-round. We can't afford to keep these going. We need the landowners to step up and help with permanent solutions for the sanitation. And then the parking issue, having worked in many different places, strong, consistent enforcement sends a message and it works, but it needs the resources to do it. And it's tough when there's so many other priorities, but we have to send a message early, ticket regularly, and be really tough. And then, That is important, and we have to get behind that because, again, the law enforcement needs to know that the community supports strong enforcement of these rules. So that's important, I think, for us to remember, when enforcement starts happening, remember you asked for this and not back down. I think that's something that too many communities fail to be consistent. And then finally on the how can the community help the Yuba, join SYRCL. This is an organization that you made, and I think we've become very successful in writing grants and partnering with the Forest Service and others for restoration projects and doing good things. But the type of work we're talking about tonight, advocacy, federal advocacy for perhaps federal wild and scenic, state advocacy for more funding for state parks, this is the type of work that is only funded by the membership. And right now, 70% of SYRCL's members give $50 or less per year. And I appreciate for those who are on low income, that's great, and we thank you. But for those of you who can do more, you got an organization with a 33-year track record who can be the public voice in Sacramento, in Washington, at the Rood Center, working for you and helping it make these guys' jobs and these women's jobs easier. So you have a good tool, it just needs more resources like all the other tools we have up here. And finally, thank you Pascal and KVMR, Yubanet, what a great service.
Terry.
Terry McMahon, Consolidated Fire District. And I really just want to echo what the rest of my partners have said up here. Communications, staffing, public education, fuels reduction. We need to do it all.
Yeah.
Jeff Horn, BLM. Again, echoing everything that's said, and I think looking down the line here at all the different agencies here, just I think really focusing on doing a better job of partnering with what we have here. This is a great crew of people, and if we leverage all of our assets, I think we can do a really good job here, and that's what I'd like to work with my agency on, is to do a better job of partnering with everybody.
Just to thank you everybody, and just to end the broadcast part, could each of you give us a phone number where we can call when we see something on your land, or if somebody has a fire, besides 911, if somebody sees a parking issue, a hazardous material situation, who can they call?
For BLM, you can call me. My number is area code 916-941-3130.
Okay, and for the Sheriff's Office, our non-emergency line is area code 530-265-1471. 530-265-1471.
We had this Matt Green with State Parks. We've had this question come up a few times, and I would say, our dispatch, like our staff, is pretty slim on its resource. So calls in there are a challenge, and I think working through the county to call in things and we can send out where the resource is needed. And we've had questions about, I get them weekly about, hey, I spotted an illegal fire. What should I do? Any illegal fire down there is probably bordering on an emergency, and if you want us to respond and with haste and get down there, that's where 911 comes into play, and let people kind of divide out where that responsibility goes after that. So,
Boyd Johnson, North San Juan Fire, 911 would be the number. If you'd like to talk to us about something else, 292-9159.
John Hotchkiss with CAL FIRE. Again, with the same with all the other emergency agencies, 911 in the event that you have any kind of an emergency that you need to report. As far as business office, CAL FIRE Auburn headquarters is area code 530-889-0111, and extension 0 will get you an operator. And our Auburn headquarters covers Nevada, Yuba, and Placer County.
Just follow up on the sheriff's comment. Most things for Nevada County will run through the sheriff's department, especially on the parking issue. But anything non-parking or non-emergency, you can reach community development at 530-265-1222.
So for the Tahoe National Forest, I'll give you two numbers. So you can call 530-265-4531. That's our front office. Or you can call myself, 530-478-6221.
Caleb?
Sure. To reach SYRCL, yubariver.org, and 530-265-5961. My extension is 207.
And that's where everybody can sign up to become river ambassadors and volunteer and become members, right?
That's right. Become members, donate money. Join.
Terry?
Of course, 911 for any emergencies. Our business line for Nevada County Consolidated Fire District is 273-3158.
So thanks again, everybody, and big thanks to KVMR and especially to Paul Emery for this live broadcast and for engineering this. A big round of applause for Paul and also for the Nevada Theater. If you have more questions, I think maybe some people will stick around a little bit. So if you want to grab somebody or ask, just come on up and ask. But you can